Okay, let's get it. Black girl magic dripping. Yeah, she's on a mission. Keeping our culture lifted. Now you can watch and listen. To Tammi Mac. Tammi Mac. Oh, what show is that? It's the Tammi Mac Show on Fox Soul.
Tammi Mac, hey, Tammi Mac, yeah. Ooh, that Tammi Mac. Tammi Mac, hey, so you know this Tammi Mac, hey, Tammi Mac.
Welcome to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. I'm Tammi Mac. Hello, everybody. I feel good today. I'm like James Brown. I feel good. Listen, from 1602, I know y'all like, you feel good, Tammi, but we got to take it all the way back to 1602. Yes, we do. From 1602 to 1799, the Dutch East India Company was the world's first publicly listed company. Now, according to Stephen Davis of Harvard Law School, that company profited by war, rape, pillage, and colonization. While that was the earliest and probably most clear-cut example of a corporation lacking any sense of social responsibility, they wouldn't be the last. Nope. According to the Pulitzer Center, Chiquita, the Chiquita Banana Company, got the Colombian police and army to massacre hundreds of Colombian banana workers striking for better working conditions. Listen, the list of companies who have committed these acts goes on and on and on. But the question is, how can we hold corporations accountable for their actions? Well, tonight, the business of being Black is corporate accountability. Please welcome project coordinator at Corporate Accountability, Akili. Hi, Baba Akili.
How you doing, Tammi? It's good to be back.
Good to see you again.
Always glad to be on your show.
Thank you so much. Emmy-nominated correspondent at Extra TV, attorney and Miss USA 2019, Chesley Christ. Hi, Chesley.
Hey, it's good to see you. Thanks for having me.
And tenure-track professor at San Jose State University and the CEO of Sean J. Fletcher Diversity Training, Dr. Sean J. Fletcher. Well, hello. Welcome to the show again. I love this panel. This is one of my favorite panels, I have to tell everyone. So let's get to this corporate accountability right off the bat. And the question that we ask every day, the first question is the why. Why should Black people care about corporate accountability? Ooh, that's such a good question. Oh my God, I love that question. Akili, let's start with you. Why should Black people care about corporate accountability?
Well, because we have to care about accountability and transparency all the time. Because if you look at our society, there's 4 conditions that Black people have to deal with: white supremacy, institutional racism, individual bigotry, and mass denial. And if you look at the tobacco industry as an example, over 45,000 Black people are going to die this year from tobacco. And so if there's any industry that needs to be held accountable and needs to be make sure that we know what they're doing, it's the tobacco industry. The pharmaceutical industry is going to promote and did promote OxyContin to a number of people that cost them their lives, and many of them Black. And so I think every time we think about a profitable industry, a super profitable industry, you can believe that Black people are going to be disproportionately negatively impacted by it. And so that's why we need to pay attention to, fight for, and make sure we hold abusive corporations accountable.
Yes, Chesley.
I could not agree more. That was incredible. To add to what Akili said, these are the companies that are employing us. These are the companies that are delivering our news. These are the companies that are breathing and living in our communities. And we need to make sure that those communities are representative of our needs and our wants. And the only way to do that is to set goals and measures and to make sure that companies are transparent in whether or not they've made those goals and measures that matter most to us.
Yeah. Dr. Fletcher.
Well, I think it's important on a number of different levels. Again, in a capitalistic system, money makes this world go round. And economic influence through the power of our dollars, not simply because we want to ensure that the dollars that are coming out of the Black community are being pumped back into it, we are actually seeing the benefits both financially, both socioeconomically, philanthropically, on a number of different levels that CSR is supposed to operate on. We have to see those dollars come back to our communities in a meaningful way. And far too often, we're not seeing them come back. We're seeing press releases. We're seeing them doing it for the gram. We're seeing a number of different performative measures that ultimately we invest in these companies by patronizing them and giving them our dollars, and we never see it back, even though they promise it.
I want to stay with you on that, Dr. Fletcher. Does it matter the company's intention if it's still pouring into the Black community? And does it matter if they're forced into doing it or not?
Well, again, just like we've seen, I think over the last year or so, I don't really get into the intentionality and the pureness of heart of these corporations, because I know at the core of it, it's about the almighty dollar and power and access to power. But as long as your money is coming back to our communities, it can be used in a very powerful, beneficial way. So I'm totally okay if they're forced to do it. It's these companies that are being let off the hook, who are not in accordance with mission statements, CSR statements, and the like, that are saying they're doing this good work, and we're not seeing it in our communities, yet we continue to give them our dollars, like many of the airlines that, again, have been shown in the last week or so. It's come out that they're still supporting Republicans who have resisted the Capitol riots on January 6th. So that, again, is totally in the face of what we're trying to do within our communities.
Yeah, yeah. Akili, I want to ask you the same question. Does it matter the intentions of the company or whether they're forced or not to give or to put back into our community?
Well, first of all, I'm an organizer by choice and profession, which means that I have spent all of my 50 years forcing this society to do right, all of my 50 years as an organizer. And so it does make a difference. The other thing is that that's extractive. It's classic extractive that you have these major corporations that come in, benefit, and even take pictures with us, but don't invest it, don't support, and don't look at how to grow the economies in ways that you would think, I mean, if it were just purely about the money, that you would think, let's help these communities grow so that they can spend more money with us. They don't. And so that extractive approach that they take, that ideology that they can continue to take, that they can take it out and not put it back, causes us and people like me to force them to live up to their commitments. And I've spent a lot of time forcing them to do that, calling them out, calling them in, challenging them, confronting them, and if necessary, disrupting them. Classic example, Wells Fargo. They have made a number of pronouncements about, since the George Floyd, about $100 million, they're gonna do this and that. Yet you can't track much of what they have done, and there is no results or benefits that we can point to. And so part of what recycling Black dollars and others have begun to do is challenge them. Color of Change has called them out on a number of occasions. So I think it does matter that we got to force it. It's one thing to say, I'm gonna do good. It's another thing to help people do good, and if necessary, cause them to do good.
Yeah, I want to stick with you on that because you said that these companies are targeting the Black communities, and it inadvertently or it directly affects us in a negative way. So how can you, let's just use the tobacco company, for instance, how can you kill a community, but at the same time need that community in order to continue to make the money and grow the business?
Well, their business model is hook them while they're young. And so they get these customers that, used to be, we've stopped them, but they look at it as long as they can increase their market share. And so we've stopped them in the US. And now what they're doing is internationally. The tobacco companies are big in Africa. They are big in China, and they're big in India and other markets. And so part of what certainly I spent over 20 years doing was challenging them, but also raising the facts that this product kills us. And so we have got to stop using it. Not only does it kill us, but they aren't in the best that the tobacco company ever did was put us in commercials. It never really benefited our community. They never invested in our community, but they did use us as models to advance their product and their interests. And part of what our struggle is not only to force them, because it's a dangerous product, but to hold them accountable and to make sure the results of many of the suits and the rest come to our communities.
Chesley, I want to ask you the difference between corporate social responsibility and corporate accountability.
I think it kind of goes back to the point that you were talking about, forcing companies to do the right thing versus companies genuinely wanting to do the right thing. And that, I believe, is what corporate social responsibility is. Often companies unprompted acting and making sure that they are responsible when they are operating in our communities. Whereas corporate accountability is really about what do we do to make sure that companies are doing good. And I mean, to that same point, I'm actually kind of caught between Dr. Fletcher and Akili on my belief about whether or not we should care whether companies are doing the right thing because we force them to do it or because they genuinely want to do it. I think in theory it doesn't matter, right? In theory, like, do what you want, like, as long as I'm benefiting, I don't care if it's because you think it's the right thing to do or because you're being profitable. But I think in practice, what we see is last year's, the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement, all these companies acting, posting things on Instagram, making sure that they gave their employees Juneteenth off. We were all excited about progress. And this year, what happened? Nothing, absolutely nothing. Aside from seeing companies post on social media during Black History Month in February on Juneteenth, what have we seen? Have we seen the diversification of boards of directors in many of these companies? Have we seen additional investment into Black communities? Have we seen, policies that benefit us in the legal industry, in business, in government? I think overall we haven't. And so I think that's where we saw where it mattered, because last year, all of these companies were thinking like, oh, we've got to do something. People are going to hold us accountable. And then now when it's less trendy, now when fewer people are talking about it, they've become lazy, sort of sitting on their laurels and not doing as much as we saw last year.
Well, look, we took Aunt Jemima off the box. What more do you Black people want, for crying out loud? Let's break real fast, no pun intended, and we'll be right back on the Tammi Mack Late Show on Fox Soul.
Hey Soulmates, it's your girl Demi from Fox Soul's Black Report. I wanted to invite you to check us out. Fox Soul's Black Report is the go-to source for Black news, views, and opinions.
I want to be around people who celebrate my culture.
We're live and interactive every day, and I'm personally bringing your comments and views into the conversation. I love my Black sisters, but Romeo be holding it down too.
I gotta do it.
We'd love to see it.
Check out Fox Soul's Black Report, Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific.
I almost got into a fight at JFK yesterday.
Hollywood Unlocked, Uncensored.
Now that everybody's trying to travel, people have forgotten what it's like to be crowded around the little bin where your luggage comes out.
Every Thursday.
I said, can you go stand on the other side, sir? I need to get right here because I know my bag is going to come out priority because I'm a priority. And he just looked at me. He refuses to move. I see my bag coming, so I nudged him.
You hit him first.
I did not hit him.
You nudged him.
I nudged him.
Wendy had a lot to say about Tabitha retiring her husband from the Los Angeles Police Force after 15 years.
TGIF.
I can't say what I want to say because that lady in our industry, and I don't need her shutting our stuff down. But Wendy need to mind her damn business. Every man is not Kevin Hunter.
Every Wednesday and Friday.
I'm gonna give them to you, Tabitha Brown. I'm giving you your roses. You inspire me.
When we come to LA, we want you to cook for us, Tabitha.
Cocktails and queens, baby. Best Mondays, here you go. Don't step in here.
This weekend on Fox Soul.
I want to make sure I make the most of it. So
Go out with a bang. A big bang on the door. Yeah. Bang, bang, bang.
Watch your favorite shows of the week.
We should hold each other accountable, not cancel. I saw everybody online talking about cancel Felicia Rashad. You gonna cancel Claire Huxtable? Are you crazy?
Fox Soul Weekend.
Nah, not with me. I'm not.
Welcome back to the Tammi Mack Late Show on Fox Soul, where tonight the business of being Black is corporate accountability. Please welcome project coordinator at Corporate Accountability, Akili, Emmy-nominated correspondent at Extra TV, attorney and Miss USA 2019, Chesley Christ, and tenure-track professor at San Jose State University and the CEO of Sean J. Fletcher Diversity Training, Dr. Sean J. Fletcher. So we left off talking about corporate responsibility versus corporate accountability. community. Before we get into that, I'm gonna grab the chat real quick because we got a few in the chat room. Let's see, Incog, hey. If these corporations are making the bulk of their profits from Black sector, it would behoove them to do right by their customers by making impactful contributions in the same community. Mateo says, Tammy, you got good debaters tonight. Indeed, I do. Akili, let's talk about social or corporate responsibility versus accountability and how that whole corporate responsibility came to be in the first place.
Well, it grew out of the anti-apartheid movement in the 70s and 80s. And, you know, corporations were being challenged for their investments in South Africa apartheid government. And so from that came a number of positions around social responsible investing, social responsible support. And it at the time, it was a useful tool because we could use it to say that you're not being socially responsible because you're investing in the apartheid government. But it was only a position. Part of what we may have missed, and I would certainly like to hear the rest of the panelists. Part of what we may have missed was connecting that to a series of demands. Yes, get out of South Africa and maybe, you know, do right here. That was not a part of the discussion at the time. So our whole idea around social responsible investment, so being socially responsible, grew out of the anti-apartheid movement. What we may have missed is how do we direct that to the US?
Yeah. Dr. Fletcher, let's talk about Incog and what he says here, our soulmate. He says corporations are making the bulk of their profits off of Black people. So then if Black people are big business, then why would you want to see Black folks dying from your product or it affecting the Black community? For instance, we talk about this all the time, and John Singleton made the point loud and clear in Boys in the Hood when he talks about the liquor stores on the corner in Black neighborhoods. There are no Whole Foods in Black neighborhoods. There's a chicken shack and a Chinese shack restaurant at every corner in the hood. So why don't these corporations invest in Black people?
I think it's systemic, and not to go too far down a rabbit hole, but to extend on what you mentioned about there being a liquor store in every corner. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, and the old sort of cliche was that there's a liquor store and a funeral home on every corner. You come out of one and you go into the other. And the challenge is that we saw that be a reality for many in our communities. It's big business to keep communities disenfranchised and marginalized and at the mercy of those in power, corporate and politically and legislatively and otherwise. So if you can't eat good food, if you can't eat healthy food and don't have access to it, now you're beholden to the healthcare system. And now the healthcare system, we know, is in bed with the insurance system. And we know that there is this vicious cycle as to what keeps us where we are. So again, if we're looking at it, but from the smoke screens that we oftentimes are thrown our way, and we get this carrot of equality dangled in front of us, and we don't realize that equity is the real conversation we need to be having. Why are we not having access to clean water if you're in Flint? Why are we not having access to healthy resources, healthy foods, good schools? Those things should be rights, not privileges. Yeah. So it runs very deep.
And once you hit that insurance company and you got no insurance, you're headed to that place that's across the street from the liquor store, right? The funeral home.
Absolutely.
There it is. There it is. My goodness. Let's see. We got some soulmates chiming in again. Let's see. It is vital for Western institutions to keep Africa and the mass with African descent in poverty and miseducate. That is how the world can eat off Africa. I'm not sure I understand the world eating off Africa. Akili, can you?
Absolutely. Let me give you an example. At Corporate Accountability, one of the areas I work on is stopping the privatization of water. So we are advocating for water as a human right. But there are a number of corporations that are trying to get into Africa to privatize their water systems. And so here's how it works. So they want the government to invest in the infrastructure, and then these private corporations will come in and manage the water and then try to get a profit out of it. And just last month, no, in May, there was an 11 African countries that came together, and corporate accountability was there as a supporter and a participant, to talk about how we can stop the privatization of water. That's one industry that they're trying to use. Africa is a minimal rich continent, and there are all kind of minerals there. And there's the Chinese, the story in many African countries, the Chinese just show up with cash dollars and like they just buy what they want. We try to show up like the World Bank and give loans and that kind of stuff. Chinese don't even do that. They just openly buy stuff. And so part of what you see is that the industries are beginning to carve up Africa once again. Most of the minerals that we use for our cell phones and for other modern accommodations comes from Africa. And so that's an example of the continued imperialism and colonialism that has existed now for over 300 years, that has invested in Africa and created the levels of poverty that are there. I've been to Africa now a couple of times, and I love going. And I often ask myself, if Africa had been simply left alone to develop on its own like any other continent, where would it be today? How would it be looked upon? But because it never was allowed that, it was colonized and then decolonized and then recolonized in economic forms again. And so we have never seen what Africa could be if it was simply allowed to develop, progress, and advance on its own.
Yeah. You speak about the privatization of water, but I think we kind of got a little glimpse into that with Texas and the privatization of their electrical grid. Yes. And how that went so wrong for that state. This week, White House Communications Director Kate Bedingfield said that the social media giants like Facebook should be held accountable for publishing misinformation. So how responsible are corporations like Facebook and Twitter when it comes to their users sharing misinformation, and what should the consequences be for that? As a journalist myself, I know that in television and radio, we have rules that we're governed by, and misinformation cannot be it can't be had when we talk about radio and television, or there will be consequences. However, because social media and the internet is so new to us, there are no consequences for the misinformation that is going not just locally, but globally. So how do you feel about that as a journalist yourself, Chesley?
We absolutely need increased accountability surrounding misinformation, because you're right. I mean, if we're thinking about television programs, Extra, we typically have 3 million viewers at any point in time every week. How many followers does a celebrity like The Rock have? 235 million. That is huge. Now, obviously, The Rock is somebody who is inspirational. He, shares a lot of information that people love hearing. But if The Rock was sharing something about, how vaccines are ineffective, and that was deemed misinformation, that should absolutely be removed. And we're lucky that we have positive celebrities like that. But we also need accountability around people who are okay with sharing that kind of misinformation. And I think even beyond, misinformation around COVID and vaccines lately, I think a lot of people have called out some of these social media companies about allowing information to be disseminated about diversity that is not true, racial slurs that are very easy to fact. How easy is it to recognize the N-word in a social media post and say that this is inappropriate, or say that we need to remove that? I think the amount of misinformation that is shared needs to be controlled. But even beyond misinformation about vaccines, about public health information, we also need to be controlling the kind of information that is hurtful to diverse and underrepresented communities.
Yeah, Dr. Fletcher?
It's tricky for me. At a surface level, of course, there needs to be accountability for the misinformation that's spread on their various platforms. But when I see them being trotted up and down Capitol Hill for Senate hearings and all of that, I'm at a loss for how. I'm a pragmatist. I want to know how are you going to do it? How are you going to pull together the same innovation that allowed for you to create this world-changing platform that is Facebook and Twitter and some of these other social media sites? How are you going to pull together your resources in order to police it? Because again, as you mentioned, social media in the digital age has outpaced regulation. So I want to see something beyond what Twitter did when they added what they felt was a novice concept of, have you actually read this before you retweet it? Remember when they put that up there? That is their response at this stage. I want to know how, because there are not human beings who are reading everybody's multi-million tweets and Facebook posts per day. I would love to see more pressure put on these companies to come up with actual innovative solutions that allow for them to actually hold people accountable and not get caught up in this rabbit hole of free speech and censorship and all of those things that users will say. They are the ones who are creating a platform for these users to use their free speech in a ill manner.
Yeah.
Well, one of the other things is that the industry that you all are in is regulated by the FCC, which was started in the 30s. And if you look at prior to that, a similar kind of set of conditions exist, that anybody could get on the radio, say anything that they wanted, and that was misleading, not only misleading, but downright lies. And so the society at the time felt that it was important enough that there should be efforts at regulations. Now, those regulations over years, I think, have been broken down, but I think we can use the same approach. The difference is that what Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram and all are doing is that we are the commodities, because they make their money by the number of eyeballs, by the number of people that hit that we are the product, really. And so we should demand accountability, fairness. The other thing is that you all have standards, and we can agree on what those standards are. The administration just appointed an attorney that will begin to look at how this industry can be not regulated, because I think that once you start trying to regulate under free speech, people are going to say, well, you can't regulate, I can say what I want. But how do we make sure that there are standards? How do we make sure that in the case of like Trump, if you continue with the big lie, you can't be on this platform? And I think that's ultimately what we are going to have to say. If you continue, and if there's a pattern, if you continue to tell that lie, if you continue to step below our standard, you can't be on this platform.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to pull the plug.
I also think it's a difference between, well, today, or not even really today. So let me just say 10 years ago, there was a difference between who were held accountable to those standards that you're referring to, Akili. It was professional, experienced journalists who were held to those standards. And so they could be fired, they could be suspended. There was some accountability and some consequences attached to it. Well, now you have regular people who are not professionals, who are not experienced, who are living their lives as journalists, as host of talk shows, and can say anything without any accountability, without any responsibility, or any consequences. And I think that's where the problem really lies. So as you said, or as Dr. Fletcher said, how will Congress, or how can these platforms control regular, average, everyday people who have taken on these sort of positions, if you will, right, Dr. Fletcher?
Yeah, and again, while two things can exist at the same time, I do not believe that we should take our foot off the gas in terms of holding these platform creators accountable. But at the same time, we still have to push for pragmatic change. How are you going to do this? And if the question continues to surface an answer of they don't know, and this may not be possible, and there is no algorithm that's strong enough to police the different freedom of speech users on these different platforms, I think now we have to have a different conversation about that many have started to have, that perhaps we've allowed something to grow that has now turned on us and is having diminishing returns. That's also a conversation that I think I'm willing to have, but I'm not sure those who are now part of the power system are willing to have, because they see how valuable this tool has become.
Well, let's take a valuable commercial break and we'll be right back on the Tammi Mack Late Show on Fox Soul.
I almost got into a fight at JFK yesterday.
Hollywood Unlocked Uncensored.
Now that everybody's trying to travel, people have forgotten what it's like to be crowded around the little bin where your luggage comes out.
Every Thursday.
I said, can you go stand on the other side, sir? I need to get right here because I know my bag is going to come out priority because I'm a priority. And he just looked at me. He refuses to move. I see my bag coming, so I nudged him.
You hit him first.
I did not hit him.
You nudged him.
I nudged him.
Wendy had a lot to say about Tabitha retiring her husband from the Los Angeles police force after 15 years.
TGIF.
I can't say what I want to say because that lady in our industry, and I don't need her shutting our stuff down. But Wendy need to mind her damn business. Every man is not Kevin Hunter.
Every Wednesday and Friday.
I'm gonna give them to you, Tabitha Brown. I'm giving you your roses. You inspire me.
When we come to LA, we want you to cook for us, Tabitha.
Every weekend, to get the true word on the street, you've got to speak the language.
It's time to put the culture back in pop culture.
Central Ave, a modern deep dive into entertainment that drives to the heart of the story. Fresh takes and authentic voices, bringing you the right show for right now.
Welcome to Central Ave.
Central Avenue. Weekends at 12 p.m. and 6 p.m. Pacific, right here on Fox Soul.
You know, cocktails and queens, baby. Best Mondays, here you go. Don't step in. Yeah.
This weekend on Fox Soul.
I want to make sure I make the most of it. So
Go out with a bang. A big bang on the floor. Yeah. Bang, bang, bang.
Watch your favorite shows of the week.
We should hold each other accountable, not cancel. I saw everybody online talking about cancel Felicia Rashad. You gonna cancel Claire Huxtable? Are you crazy?
Fox Soul Weekend.
Nah, not with me. I'm not.
Welcome back to the Tammi Mack Late Show on Fox Soul. Tonight, the business of being Black is corporate accountability. And we have our guest tonight, project coordinator at Corporate Accountability, Akili, Emmy-nominated correspondent at Extra TV, attorney and Miss USA 2019, Chesley's here with us, and tenure-track professor at San Jose State University and the CEO of Sean J. Fletcher Diversity Training, Dr. Sean J. Fletcher. So we talked about the difference between corporate social responsibility and corporate accountability. But is corporate social responsibility enough? Have companies now become better at policing themselves? I do believe we can agree that the murder of George Floyd really changed the trajectory of social responsibility with corporations. Or do we all agree with that? Chesley?
I don't think that it has changed tremendously, unfortunately. I mean, funny enough, me and Akili were talking about this just before we started the show. We were talking about how companies have gotten better at marketing their efforts, maybe not about actually having authentic, genuine efforts when it comes to corporate social responsibility and being accountable. And so I'm unfortunately, I don't have a lot of faith in these companies yet. And I think when we look back to last year, like I was saying a little earlier, we saw a lot of companies act because they were forced to. We saw a lot of them act because there were people out in the streets, and not just Black people, who we make up, 12 to 14% of the population. You saw people of all ages, of all races, of all genders out in the streets demanding change. And that demand, that cry could not be ignored. And so we saw companies respond to that. I do think that corporate social responsibility is still important, and then there are still some companies that are going to do the right thing. But I don't know that by and large, they have really changed what they're doing. I think what will help is that these new generations, Gen Z, younger millennials, we expect positive change from companies. We expect that they align with our values and beliefs. And so there are some actions that they're taking, but it's not because they honestly always really care. It's because we've demanded it from them.
Dr. Fletcher, is this a trend?
The bottom line is that CSR is good for business. And I don't mean that in a cliche way at all. Market research shows that many consumers prefer to do business with organizations that show that they have, for lack of a better term, a heart, who have a conscience, who are actually pouring into the communities in which they do business. Now, the extent of meaningful, sustainable work that they're doing, that's a different conversation. However, just like I know that stat, the corporations know that stat as well. I worked in corporate America for over a decade. We knew that statistic. We knew that it was good for business. We knew that putting that in a press release, not doing things out of the good nature of our heart and not telling people, there was this old adage that you don't go and do great work without telling everybody. That works in your private life, not with business, because CSR is good for business. We know that, corporations know that, but our communities have to be armed with that same information to know that there is power in their dollars collectively. And until we are collectively powerful in our socioeconomic and economic resources, we will continue to be preyed upon. And we've seen that for generations.
Akili, I want to come to you on this. Dr. Fletcher says there's power in our dollar. And I hear Black people saying it all the time. There's power in our dollar. The only time I actually saw Black people take that seriously and to heart was during the bus boycotts, during the Woolworth boycotts. As of late, this turn of the century, I've not really seen that taken to heart, that our dollar is power. I've not seen Black people come together and say, we officially are not going. I mean, there was this big deal about Gucci and the blackface turtleneck. Black folk were still buying Gucci. There's this big deal about Jeff Bezos and how horrible he treats his employees. And then he flies off, whisk off in his $1 million rocket to space while his own employees can't even have proper health care insurance. But nobody's not going to order off of Amazon. Nobody's going to give up their Amazon Prime card. So what is the psychology behind this, Akili?
In part because much of our psychology is that of consumers. And as long as that's the centerpiece of what you do, then you make consumer decisions. And one of the things, I have a number of hats that I wear. I'm with Black Lives Matters, and I'm also with Downtown Crenshaw. We're a group of people who came together, raised money to buy the Crenshaw Mall. It's a mall in historically Black LA. We raised the money. We've come forward with a great development plan and all the rest. We raised $33 million in 8 days to put down a bid. But we keep being told that, one, we don't have enough experience, two, that we're not sure you can actually make this work. Yet each time we've made a bid, the pension funds go out and find another, usually white person from outside the community, that the latest one didn't even have enough money, had to give him extension. So while we always say, the green will make people do things, no, we still have our money on the table and they won't take it. And so sometimes it's not enough to simply say, it's all about the green. It's also about Black power and Black self-determination. What we are doing here in Los Angeles with the Crenshaw Mall is an example of our efforts around self-determination. We've raised the money, we've put together we've done everything could be asked of us, and still they won't. We ain't asking them to give us out that mall. We're willing to buy it, and we got the financing to do it. And so I say that because too often we think all we got to do is just become more economically secure, that's going to open doors for us. Not necessarily the case, because anti-Blackness still exists in America, and people are willing to exercise it. Part of what I want to talk about and get back to is greenwashing and whitewashing. And so the corporations have found that if they do a little something around, we're making efforts at a better climate, that their customers, me, a consumer, will think, oh, that's good. Or whitewashing that goes on. Well, we support all, and they don't use your term, Dr. Fletcher, equity. They talk about equality. And once, we hear that as a consumer and as a people who have been denied equality and equity, we think that's good and that's a great company. When in fact, they probably is just in their press release. And there's probably, as a matter of fact, from to this day, none of us can point to any substantive changes that these corporations, when they made these pronouncements last year around George Floyd, we can't point to one thing yet.
Yeah, you got a point. I wonder if LeBron James knew how important that Crenshaw Mall was, the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza was. If he attached his name to that, would they then sell it to the Crenshaw district?
Well, but let me very quickly, this grew out of the people. We have three principles. It's got to be Black owned, Black developed, and contribute to Black community wealth. And what we did was, instead of deciding what we wanted, we spent months listening to people, and they listened so that they could say what they wanted. And that's what we want to develop at the mall. People said they wanted green space. People said that they wanted co-ops. People said that they wanted community affordable housing. Well, to some people, well, you can't make no money off that. Well, yes, you can if it's community centered. And so,
do you think if a name were attached to it, it would be different though, Akili?
Downtown, it's called Downtown Crenshaw Rising. Once again, we've done everything asked of us. And I want to get to Dr. Fletcher's point. We've raised the money. Like I said, we raised $33 million in 8 days to put in that bid. The current bidder hasn't raised enough money yet, and they've given him extensions so he can go out and raise the money.
Chesley, I know you wanted to jump in here.
Yeah, well, I mean, to you guys' earlier point, we were talking about some of the actions that Black people took decades ago with the bus boycotts, with the boycott of Woolworths. I think that Black people still are making those efforts. I think we just see them in different ways. One of the recent actions I think a lot of Black creators took was on TikTok. I think the last time I was on here, we were talking about TikTok and how there were some white TikTok creators who were using some of the Black dances, some of the dances created by Black creators on TikTok, and not giving them due credit. And so recently there have been at least 2 boycotts of TikTok by Black creators who, TikTok is known for its TikTok dances and a lot of young people doing them. And Black creators were like, we've made all these dances. You're not giving us credit. We will no longer be making dances. And I got to tell you, I love TikTok. I'm on there all the time. And I have not seen very many new creative dances that many people want to do because, like I said, these Black creators are incredibly unique. They make these really creative dances, and they were like, well, if you're not going to give us credit, we can make them for you. And so I think we're seeing those actions, but just in different ways. And honestly, I think Black people are tired. We've been tired. And I think that, if we're comparing today's movements to years ago, I think we have a greater expectation of people who aren't Black to speak up. When we were looking at marches as of late, they are more diverse because why are we, the 14% in this country, having to be the only people fighting for space in companies, in organizations, government, and in power? There should be other people speaking up for us. It shouldn't just be us. And so I think you see more mixtures, more diverse voices speaking up, not just Black people, because we have that expectation. And
that's a great point. Yeah, girl, we've been tired since Crispus Attucks. We've been tired. We've been tired. We've been tired. I'm so tired. I need to take a commercial break. We'll be right back on the Tammi Mack Late Show on Fox Soul.
Every weekend, to get the true word on the street, you've got to speak the language.
It's time to put the culture back in pop culture.
Central Ave, a modern deep dive into entertainment that drives to the heart of the story. Fresh takes and authentic voices, bringing you the right show for right now.
Welcome to Central Ave.
Central Avenue, weekends at 12 p.m. and 6 p.m. Pacific, right here on Fox Soul.
Cocktails and Queens, baby. Best Mondays, here you go. Don't step in. Yeah.
This weekend on Fox Soul.
I want to make sure I make the most of it. So
go out with a bang. A big bang on the floor. Yeah. Bang, bang, bang.
Watch your favorite shows of the week.
We should hold each other accountable, not cancel. I saw everybody online talking about cancel Felicia Rashad. You gonna cancel Claire Huxtable? Are you crazy?
Fox Soul Weekend.
Nah, not with me. I'm not.
I like to call Spirit Break Your Spirit Airlines.
Cocktails with the Queens.
When I tell you my knees was right here. The whole flight. This was my knee in my
Wait a minute. Don't you got to pay for your purse to go on there with the
Sip and serve every Monday night.
Spirit Airlines waste their money on the recline button. Here go the seat when you sit there, and here go recline.
Yep.
On Fox Soul.
I almost got into a fight at JFK yesterday.
Hollywood Unlocked Uncensored.
Now that everybody's trying to travel, people have forgotten what it's like to be crowded around the little bin where your luggage comes out.
Every Thursday.
I said, can you go stand on the other side, sir? I need to get right here because I know my bag is going to come out priority because I'm a priority. And he just looked at me. He refuses to move. I see my bag coming, so I nudged him.
You hit him first.
I did not hit him.
You nudged him.
I nudged him.
So.
Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. I'm going to the chat room. Let's see. Oh, okay. Everybody's saying, Akili, you're right. That's all I see up in here. You're right, Akili. You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. Let's see. The issue with Bezos is that they asked him to shut down the 24/7 warehouse facilities to do a thorough cleaning at the height of COVID. He refused. In fact, in Staten Island, New York, one worker who mobilized the people to protest was terminated. I do remember that. Akili is right about anti-Blackness still existing. I believe Tyler Perry approached one network and told them he had sponsors to fill the time slot for his proposed programming, but the network refused. Basically, this black man did all the work and found the money, but they still said no. And that is exactly your point, Akili. They don't want us in. What about these companies that pretend to be black, but they aren't? Y'all know what I'm talking about when I say that?
Yes.
Like they will get a black person, a popular black person, to represent that company and maybe even give them a percentage of ownership to at least say that they have ownership. But all in all, the company is still not majority owned by a black person. How do we feel about these companies and the responsibility that they have to say out loud that, hey, Puffy doesn't completely own Ciroc?
Or nor does Shaquille O'Neal with Papa John's. He's more the spokesperson. He's not, an owner. And one of the things that you talked about, Dr. Fletcher, was the press releases that you wrote about. We can get black spokespersons. We can find that they're there. But does that spokesperson then turn around and say, well, we need to make sure that there are more Papa John's in these communities? I don't know. And I'm under the impression that it doesn't happen.
Yeah, for every Magic Johnson, there's a Shaquille O'Neal. There is a person who is presented as though they are in ownership. Because remember, Shaquille O'Neal came on the scene after that racist scandal from the previous owner. So again, there's a vicious system that is so covert. It is so laissez-faire from the standpoint of oftentimes we don't even know that it's at play until we've already succumbed to its predatory ways. And it's no different when it's projected that Puff owns Ciroc, and then we feel as though black empowerment, let's go and patronize. There's degrees to it. The majority of your dollar is going to somebody other than the percentage that Puff owns and the percentage that these other people own within our communities. And that's why knowledge is so important. And what Brother Akili mentioned is right on time, that us understanding how the system is played and just how sinister it is, it allows for us to position ourselves in a way to mitigate it. Now, some of it is unavoidable, and that's a different conversation for a different day. But understanding our position in it, the position that we can play on the various levels of economic and social empowerment within our own communities is vital.
Chesley, I want to get to this topic before we run out of time here today. I want to talk about companies and their elected officials that they side with, that they support financially. Toyota, for instance, has donated to members of Congress. And is it new for companies to be scrutinized over the elected officials that they support? A lot of elected officials have been, I mean, we talked about some airlines here today already on the show that support January 6th or support the Congress that support or not support, but not deny that there was an insurrection at all. So is this, like, are we supposed to know this? Is this something that consumers are supposed to know, who these corporations fund? And is that something we should take to heart when we think about what we purchase when it comes to responsibility and accountability, Chesley?
Yes, absolutely. I don't think that it's information that's always easily accessible for all of us. I think, if you do a Google search, it might take you a little to figure out where companies are donating their money. I think what is most damaging is the trend we've seen over the last couple of years where these companies have said, we're not going to support people who supported the insurrection, who, denied the accurate results of the election. And we saw those companies pull their support from those congressmen and women. And then we saw them donate to them after we forgot about the entire situation. I think that is what is most dangerous and most misleading. So it's unfortunate, but I think that there are several organizations that actually will compile a list of your own personal interests and how companies are donating. And I've taken it upon myself to choose not to spend my money at certain restaurants who I know donate to different congressmen who don't support gay rights, who don't support trans rights, who have denied some of the issues that are most important to me. I think we do need to make sure that we're donating time and looking into this kind of information. And
well, that's why you're so slim. That's why you're so slim and fit. You don't have many choices.
I think it is kind of sad. It is kind of sad what we're left with. But
I do want to ask this though, because I get that. But for instance, let's just use Chick-fil-A here, for example. There was a lot of
the first one in my mind. I was like, I can't.
There was a lot of backlash for Chick-fil-A. But I want to ask, if Chick-fil-A has a set of morals and values that they believe in, is that wrong for Chick-fil-A?
I think the real question is it wrong for you? Right? Chick-fil-A doesn't support gay marriage and they speak out against gay marriage. I'm a Christian. I support gay marriage. I support the LGBTQ plus communities. And that means that I don't support Chick-fil-A, right? So there are tons of people who, like, for example, the Supreme Court case years ago, where the Supreme Court found, was addressing the issue of whether or not a particular bakery needed to make a cake that honored a gay marriage. And I think the bigger question is not whether or not that bakery should have to make that cake. Should you support that bakery? And I think that rather than constantly looking to the government to regulate companies and their choices, I think we, sort of to the point that we were talking about earlier, we need to control where we put our dollars. And I think there are so many companies that end up going under, or some companies that end up going under, because we've decided, well, we're not going to support you. There was another story that went viral a little bit ago. There was a small bakery in a small town. I wish I could remember which state it was in, but they were making like LGBTQ plus cupcakes. Okay, Keely's not in his head. Keely and Dr. Fletcher is well. Yeah. And so they were saying that they had received terrible comments, they were getting negative reviews because they were in this town full of people that were anti-LGBTQ plus. And so they went viral. They sold out almost immediately. They had a line around the block because they decided where their money was going to go. And rather than waiting for local legislators, state legislators, or Congress to act, they said, we're going to do that. We're going to show you that we support you and we want you to continue to exist and be successful.
But the question is, and I don't mean it for now, we're going to go to break. Are people still making lines around the block at that establishment? Are they still drawing attention to that establishment, or did it all fade away and go by just as quick as a scroll on your Instagram? We'll be right back on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul.
Wendy had a lot to say about Tabitha retiring her husband from the Los Angeles police force after 15 years.
TGIF.
I can't say what I want to say because that lady in our industry, and I don't need her shutting our stuff down. But Wendy need to mind her damn business. Every man is not Kevin Hunter.
Every Wednesday and Friday.
I'm gonna give them to you, Tabitha Brown. I'm giving you your roses. You inspire me.
When we come to LA, we want you to cook for us, Tabitha.
I almost got into a fight at JFK yesterday.
Hollywood Unlocked, Uncensored.
Now that everybody's trying to travel, people have forgotten what it's like to be crowded around the little bin where your luggage comes out.
Every Thursday.
I said, can you go stand on the other side, sir? I need to get right here because I know my bag is going to come out priority because I'm a priority. And he just looked at me. He refuses to move. I see my bag coming, so I nudged him.
You hit him first.
I did not hit him.
You nudged him.
I nudged him.
Every weekend, to get the true word on the street, you've got to speak the language.
It's time to put the culture back in pop culture.
Central Ave, a modern deep dive into entertainment that drives to the heart of the story. Fresh takes and authentic voices, bringing you the right show for right now.
Welcome to Central Ave.
Central Avenue. Weekends at 12 p.m. and 6 p.m. Pacific, right here on Fox Soul.
You know, cocktails and queens, baby. Best Mondays, here you go. Don't step in. Yeah.
This weekend on Fox Soul.
I want to make sure I make the most of it. So
Go out with a bang. A big bang on the floor. Yeah. Bang, bang, bang.
Watch your favorite shows of the week.
We should hold each other accountable, not cancel. I saw everybody online talking about cancel Felicia Rashad. You gonna cancel Claire Huxtable? Are you crazy?
Fox Soul Weekend.
Nah, not with me. I'm not.
Show.
Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Thank you so much for being here tonight. What a lovely conversation and a wealth of information from each of my panelists tonight. Dr. Sean Fletcher, the Sean J. Fletcher Diversity Training. You want to talk about that, or you got something else on your mind?
Absolutely. There's a whole lot going on, but that's my passion work, because I'm working with a lot of the individuals that's at the epicenter of what we're talking about tonight. Those folks who are power brokers, who are making decisions that are wrestling with what to do, whether there is representation on their leadership board or their frontline employees. There is room for conversation about some of these critical issues. And again, being able to work side by side with these individuals and influence and be that cog in the wheel that all of us are trying to play to move us toward this equitable society, not just equality, but equitable society, is the work that myself and my team continue to do. So SeanJFletcher.com.
Thank you so much for doing the work. Chesley, you do the work at Extra and as an attorney. I'm not sure what you want to dive into tonight, but go for it.
Well, you know, we've talked about corporate accountability. We need to make sure that we're supporting Black businesses. And if we're talking about keeping corporations accountable, we need to keep ourselves accountable and support those small businesses that are in our own communities, including my small business. White Collar Glam is a blog that I have that serves women to make sure that we have stylish clothing for work. If you visit shop.whitecollarglam.com, you can shop the jewelry that my blog sells. And also, just an FYI to people out there who really do want to shop Black businesses, Instagram now has a tag where you can actually designate that your business is a Black business. So if you look at White Collar Glam on Instagram, you'll see that I have that tag. So make sure to keep an eye out for that as you look at my business and as you look at other businesses that you want to shop and support.
I hope other businesses can't perpetrate that tag.
Right? I mean, we need to make sure that Instagram actually is doing some checking or something, but at least they started somewhere. Yeah. We're happy for progress.
Akili, corporate accountability. That's what this show is all about. Take us on home.
Very good. You can go to corporateaccountability.com and look at our programs around water, food, climate, and democracy, because that's one of our major. We believe that if we have a strong democracy, we can begin to hold these corporations accountable. So go to corporateaccountability.org and you can find out more about us. What what I'm working on is stopping the privatization of water nationally and internationally, and making sure that we hold the climate polluters accountable for the mess that they've made. And so those are some of the things that we are working on at Corporate Accountability. You can always find, and we're on all platforms, so you can find out more about what we're doing. And you can always go to, right here in LA, if you want to find out more about Downtown Crenshaw, you can go to downtowncrenshawrising.com. So thank you all very much. I really enjoyed being on with everybody here. It was very informative and spirited, and I really enjoyed it. And thank you so much, Tammi, for having me back.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Akili. It's always a pleasure. That concludes this edition of the Tammi Mack Late Show on Fox Soul. And all you have to do is log on to foxsoul.tv or stay with us on YouTube to watch the show anytime you want, baby. Until tomorrow, everybody, it's a blessing to be in your box. Bye, y'all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.